The story began in an ordinary office. Nothing special, but today something has changed for two people. The event started in the office of CEO Cha Jong-moo, a very handsome and responsible man. His secretary asked if she should lower the blinds since the man was frowning. But the reason wasn't the sun, as the CEO explained, it was a resignation letter. Concerned, the secretary approached and asked why this was a problem. She explained that she had written it properly and everything should be perfect. The man confirmed that it was indeed flawless because she always did an excellent job. The problem was the fact that she wanted to quit. And it was so sudden for him that he struggled to find the right words. The girl looked away, adding that it was for personal reasons. The CEO fell silent, adjusted his tie, and admitted to himself that secretaries can always be replaced. But with Min Seol-ha, they had been working together for 3 years. 3 perfect years. He wasn't exaggerating. That's how their teamwork truly felt. She was an outstanding employee. She could finish tasks even before the CEO asked for them. She stood out among the other employees with her responsibility. There was a time when she went on vacation, and for the man, it was hell. He couldn't keep up with anything, and now this girl wanted to leave for good. He didn't want to lose such a qualified worker. He turned to Min Seol-ha with some concern, reminding her that they had been working together for 3 years. And she should understand that without her, it would be very difficult for him. Cha Jong-moo asked if something had happened and if he could help solve it. The girl shook her head. Nothing had happened. The man wondered what could be wrong if it wasn't a specific situation. So he tried to offer a salary increase. But no, the girl replied that she already had the highest salary in the industry. A promotion was also out of the question because unpleasant rumors might spread, suggesting favoritism. A car wouldn't work either because Min Seol-ha didn't have a driver's license. The CEO saw that the girl was determined, unshakable, like a mountain. He took a step back and leaned on the desk, asking what he should do. Adjusting his tie again, he asked if there was anything she wanted. He could give her anything she wished. She just needed to say it. Min Seol-ha clenched one hand into a fist, barely holding herself back. She had been restraining herself for so long, and now the CEO himself was asking what she wanted. And it was only because the man was used to her and didn't want to let her go. That also pushed her to speak. Min Seol-ha blushed before speaking, but eventually began. And somehow, unexpectedly and boldly, she blurted out a wish to spend a night of pleasure with the CEO. Of course, saying this to such a man was a daring decision. He didn't even have time to be surprised. The girl immediately started trembling when she realized what she had just said. Then Cha Jong-moo finally found his voice and asked if he had heard her correctly. The girl covered her face with her hands, saying she must be insane and that they should forget about it. Just as she was about to leave the office, the CEO said he would think about it. And he would give his answer to the secretary by the weekend. Hopefully, Min Seol-ha would still be working there by that time and wouldn't quit. Right after this conversation, the girl went to the cafeteria to meet her colleague, who was also her friend. The girl with short hair, pleasant appearance, and a cup of coffee in her hands couldn't believe what her friend had done, what she had said. She even asked again if they were talking about the same Cha Jong-moo. Was it really the same CEO, Cha Jong-moo? Handsome, young, stubborn, and hardworking. The man whose appearance enchanted all the girls in their office. But according to the main character, it was indeed that very Cha Jong-moo they were talking about. Her friend reminded her that she couldn't even confess her love before, and now she had made such a bold request. Honestly, Min Seol-ha cursed that stupid crush. Why did she even need it? And to make matters worse, it had all started a long time ago. Exactly 3 years back. They were walking down the street together, talking about the general director's meeting. It was a cold season, and that day was cold too, so the secretary lady got a little chilly. The man noticed her cheeks, ears, and nose had turned red. He said that if Ms. Min was cold, she could calmly go back to the office. But Seola apologized for bothering him and said she was fine. Later on, a colleague approached Ms. Min and said that the general director had left them hand warmers. He gave such warmers to everyone, so the secretary wanted to see what she had received. It turned out there were pills, a hand warmer, and a sweet note with wishes. A simple note saying, "Hope you work well today," stirred more feelings than it should have. Sometime after that day, Ms. Min heard that their general director was getting married to a girl from some company. Of course, they were a perfect match, so they were getting married. Naturally, Min Seol-ha got a little upset. When she came home, she decided to calm herself with a cup of tea. She tried not to be sad because she already knew she never had a chance anyway. She tried to convince herself that this was how it was meant to be, and she should have hoped less. These thoughts led her to wonder what kind of girl the bride was. Probably cheerful, very beautiful, from a good family. No wonder, they're perfect, so they fit each other perfectly. Their wedding would be grand, and the general director would look good in his wedding suit. Lost in thought, the girl poured too much water into her cup. She hadn't even noticed when she became so captivated by that man. After that day, they had one conversation. To be precise, the general director carefully asked if Ms. Secretary was okay because she had become clumsier, which was unusual for her. The girl apologized. It was hard to admit that it was because of him. Later on, the girl decided it would be better to resign rather than cause trouble. Grabbing her face, Min Solha desperately said she was pathetic. A friend said that was too harsh and maybe he liked her too. He didn't reject her after all. He said he'd think about it. If he didn't care, he would have immediately fired her. The colleague was sure he had some feelings, while the secretary felt foolish. Seeing something, the friend put a coffee cup on the table, telling Min Seolha to sit and just listen. When the general director passed by, she started speaking louder. She said things as if someone was flirting with Min Seolha and she was rejecting him. The girl didn't understand this nonsense, but it was her friend's plan, to make the general director jealous of an imaginary admirer. Ms. Min nearly ruined everything when she wanted to ask what her friend was saying. But by then, Cha Jung-moo was already at their table, addressing the secretary. It turned out he had been messaging her, but the girl hadn't seen it. At the same time, her friend texted her saying that he was definitely jealous. The girl was distracted when the general director asked what time their meeting with another company was. Min Seolha replied hesitantly, saying it was at 5. The man noticed someone was messaging her and said that if it was work-related, she could reply. But it wasn't work-related. She said as much, but Cha Jung-moo asked who kept messaging her like that. He hadn't asked personal questions before, so it was strange that he suddenly started. Ms. Min decided not to lose her composure and said it wasn't important. A few seconds later, the elevator doors opened and they were supposed to get out. The secretary started to leave, but the general director stopped her. Then he pressed her against the elevator wall to say something. First, he pressed the button to close the doors and said he had an answer to her request. He hadn't thought much, but he already had something to say. It turned out he wasn't against fulfilling that request. But there was a condition. The girl shouldn't limit him in quantity. To be exact, the general director didn't want it to be just one night. Ms. Min was surprised by what she heard. She hadn't expected him to agree, let alone say something like that. The man joked that now Min Seolha didn't seem so combative anymore. She tried to say something, but stammered and mumbled out of embarrassment. Smiling, Cha Jung-moo teased her, saying he couldn't hear her at all. She was speaking too quietly. Then she spoke more confidently, saying they had a deal. That very evening, the two of them went to a luxurious hotel. As soon as they entered, the man attacked her with kisses. He embraced her just as she had dreamed before, though she never thought it would actually happen. They enjoyed kissing each other, their lips moving gently and skillfully. The girl clenched the director's shirt in her hand while he ran his other hand through her soft hair. When they began to run out of breath from the intense kiss, the man opened his eyes. Soon after, he slightly pulled away from his secretary's lips. Cha Jung-moo looked at her, admiring her, and then spoke. He asked, just to be sure, if she was really certain about what they were about to do. After all, it wasn't too late. He could stop and leave her be. The secretary didn't answer right away. She was too shy and blushed deeply. She clearly replied that no, he shouldn't stop, and pulled him towards her by his tie. After that, they both ended up on the bed. The girl was lying down, while Cha Jung-moo hovered above her. More than anything, he was worried she might regret it later. But she was the one reaching out to him. So he took her hand and pulled her closer to him. He kissed her wrist and warned her not to complain later. But she was unlikely to regret it. All she wanted was to continue and feel the touch of the man she had dreamed of. In her eyes, he saw so much desire that he took off his shirt, showing off his impressive physique to the girl. After that, they immediately reached for another kiss. There were many more passionate kisses and whispers that night. Unfortunately, they couldn't spend the whole night enjoying each other's bodies, as the man had a meeting. Cha Jung-moo said it would be better for her to go home and apologized for not being able to drive her himself. He thought she needed to rest, and he would manage everything on his own. He emphasized that he had thoroughly exhausted her today. Realizing his words, the girl blushed furiously. Embarrassed, she agreed that she really did need a good rest. She asked him to call her if anything happened, said goodbye, and left. Cha Jung-moo watched for a while as the taxi drove away. And it would have been hard to say what exactly he was feeling, judging by his face. The girl was quickly brought home, and she decided to dedicate the entire evening to herself. She washed her hair, filled a hot bath, and gladly sank into it. She still couldn't figure out how she would even look him in the eyes tomorrow. This night would stay in her memory for a long time. It was so wonderful, yet so strange. And it would be impossible to stop thinking about it. The director was incredible. When he took off his shirt, a gorgeous body was revealed underneath. And how enchanting his face looked when he loomed over Min Seola. Thinking about this, she spent a lot of time in the bath. It was already time to get out. It wouldn't be good if she kept floating in the clouds like this. Suddenly, a notification on her phone distracted her. She flinched. What if Mr. Cha had messaged her? She really hoped so. It turned out to be just a spam message. But what surprised her most was that she had been hoping for a message from the director. Flopping onto the bed, she remembered that he wouldn't message now as he was in a meeting. And overall, she understood they weren't even dating. He wasn't obligated to write. The girl turned off the light, stared out the window for a while, and eventually fell asleep. Nothing should have disturbed her sweet sleep. But in the middle of the night, her phone suddenly rang. The girl had just fallen asleep, so she wasn't too happy that someone wanted to talk in the middle of the night. Barely opening her eyes, she looked at the bright phone screen. And in a second, she jumped up, answering a call from Cha Jung-moo. The man asked if he had woken up the secretary lady, and she lied that she hadn't gone to bed yet. Min Seol-ha asked if everything was all right since he was calling so late. The CEO replied that overall, everything had gone very well. He wanted to call earlier, but Director Kim had been drinking and wouldn't let him. He explained that he tried his best to call not too late, but it hadn't worked out very well. At the end of his monologue, he apologized for not giving her a ride home. And then he apologized again, realizing himself that he was rambling nonsense. They said goodbye, wished each other a good night, and hung up. Min Seol-ha lay down on the bed, thinking it was strange but very sweet. He called just to apologize and wish her a good night. The girl felt so many emotions at once that she doubted she would fall asleep. The man, holding the phone in his hand, was surprised at himself. They had been working together for 3 years, and there had been many rumors around them. But they subsided a bit when people saw how capable Seol-ha was. These 3 years, they had seen each other almost every single day. This girl was talented, skilled, confident, diligent, beautiful. So he had no doubt that he had feelings for Min Seol-ha. It would be strange to lie to himself and say she was just a secretary, but in front of others, it was a necessity. Cha Jung-moo had set boundaries to prevent rumors that would upset her. That night, when he returned home, he went to take a shower. He took a hot shower, unable to shake off memories of their night together. And the way she asked for it? Wasn't that even more endearing? The entire time he was in the shower, he couldn't stop thinking about Min Seol-ha. She had been so alluring when she asked to spend the night together. From the CEO's perspective, it was almost too sweet and made him want to repeat that night. In the morning, Min Seol-ha acted as usual, bringing his documents and organizing his schedule. She didn't forget a fresh sandwich and coffee. Their typical morning routine, so to speak. The CEO noticed she was stubbornly trying to behave as if nothing had happened. Was it her professionalism, or was she trying to use the routine to ease the awkwardness in their relationship? He decided to find the answer to that question and addressed the secretary. He asked if she had enjoyed their night together. At first, she really seemed to pause, as if lost in thought. Then she remembered the CEO's impressive body, and how he kissed every corner of her body, especially her neck, chest, lips. Then she blushed, turned away, and pretended not to understand, saying she had slept like the dead that night. Cha Jung-moo smiled. So after all, she was hiding behind the routine. Suddenly, the man asked if the secretary had heard rumors about his engagement. The girl turned pale, recalling the fiancé, while the man said he was shocked by such ridiculous gossip. The CEO asked if that was why she had made that proposal. Miss Min grew nervous, avoiding his piercing gaze. She didn't have to answer, as the phone interrupted them. She apologized, took out her phone, and checked who had messaged her. At that moment, her face changed. First, she was surprised. Then her expression darkened. The man even asked if everything was all right and if the message was work-related. Stammering, the secretary replied that it was personal. A bit later, in the CEO's office, the girl asked for a day off tomorrow. She explained that she understood it was difficult to be without a secretary during such a busy time, but she really needed it. The man asked her not to worry about that and said he was more concerned about Chasiola's condition. She said she was fine and that her absence wouldn't cause any problems. That day, the girl still had work to do, but she was much quieter than usual. But the CEO couldn't believe it, as if everything was fine. The next day, the girl didn't go to work but went somewhere else. Every year, closer to winter, she visited her father. No, he was alive. However, he had been in a correctional facility for a long time. Every year since she started visiting, her father never came out to meet her. That made her sad, but in some way, she had gotten used to it. Once, her father hit a person with his car. He hit them and fled, leaving the still-living body behind. It was hard to believe that her kind and decent father had done such a thing. The man who was supposed to bring her father out tried to comfort the girl, saying that every time he hears about her visit, her father becomes a little happier. After that, she always stops by a nearby shop. Small gifts were sold there. Today, she came across a rare snowman. Still upset, the girl said she wanted to find a different toy. They offered to exchange it, but the girl wanted to find it herself. The cashier lady asked which toy Min Seolha was looking for. It was Rudolph, the little reindeer. That toy reminded her of her father. On the way home, it even started snowing. A beautiful time, the girl thought. It was Yoon Shim asking how the visit went. That was a difficult question, which she heard every year from her friend. After her father's arrest, Min Seolha was sent to an orphanage where she met her best friend, Yoon Shim. While they talked, the girl had already reached home. She knew that Yoon Shim was worried. Her friend wanted to invite Min Seolha somewhere, but she wasn't in the mood. Instead, they decided to have a beer together at the girl's place. Unexpectedly for Yoon Shim, Min Seolha thanked her for something. The main character explained that she was very grateful for Yoon Shim's friendship. At first, her friend said that everything was fine, then suddenly screamed into the phone. It turned out there was something else very important. Good news. Apparently, Mr. Cha approached her today and asked about the girl. The man had actually been worried all day about whether Cha Seolha was all right. He couldn't get the sad expression on Min Seolha's face out of his mind. Could something have happened to her? That's what wouldn't let him rest. The girl called the CEO when she saw that he had texted her. He said that everything at work was calm, but Min Seolha was an excellent secretary. But he was worried because he couldn't get a reply from his secretary. And was everything really fine? Or could she tell him why she had taken the day off? He blurted out that of course he had no right to insist. It just bothered him. She didn't give a clear answer, only said that it wasn't serious and thanked him for his concern. Right after that, her friend arrived and the girl apologized to the CEO. He said he understood and bid farewell to Miss Min. After the conversation, Cha Jung-moo collapsed into his chair and relaxed with a sigh. The man became curious who had come to visit the girl so late at night. The next morning, rumors about Min Seolha began spreading in the office. The girls were saying that Miss Min had become happier and kept checking her phone. It seemed they were hinting that the secretary might have someone. Cha Jung-moo remembered a conversation he had overheard between Min Seolha and her friend about some guy, and he himself had noticed what the employees were talking about. His lady secretary had recently been frequently texting or talking to someone on the phone. And even that day, when he was looking for Miss Min, it turned out she was once again talking to someone. The CEO met her already in his office. The girl said that another company had called, requesting a meeting as soon as possible. Moreover, Director Kim would personally visit them. Besides, the girl said she couldn't have lunch with Cha Jung-moo today. The director's tone turned more saddened, and he asked why. Min Seolha replied that she had things to do. Nothing special. Then the director turned back to the girl and asked why she was avoiding him. Min Seolha didn't even quite understand such a sudden question. The director looked away and asked if she found him disgusting after that night. Maybe not disgusting, said the director, but perhaps Ms. Min just isn't interested. After all, she took a day off on Friday and hasn't been at her workplace all day today. The director asked if this was because of that guy Ms. Lee had mentioned. Min Seolha explained that it was a misunderstanding. She had left her workplace to book a table for the director's meeting, and on Friday she had personal matters. So she wasn't avoiding anyone. It just happened that way. Moreover, she pretended not to know which guy he was talking about. When Cha Jong-moo asked who had come to see her yesterday, it turned out it was Yoon Shim. Upon hearing that, the man felt relieved and a little awkward. Actually, the girl wanted to talk about something else, but they were interrupted by a knock on the door. An urgent meeting was called, said the employee outside. So the two of them went there together. The man probably wanted to avoid the conversation a little because he felt awkward about his questioning. But sooner or later, Min-sola decided she would tell him everything. The meeting was not very informative, yet there was no time left to talk. After all, during working hours, the director worked hard without distractions. A little later, when the man was somewhat freer, the girl thought to try talking again. But as soon as she raised her head, the man was already talking with her colleague. She didn't look closely to see if it was an important conversation and decided it could wait. After a while, evening came. It was already 7 and the director was still busy. The girl gathered her papers. All day, what she wanted to say had been bothering her. She was genuinely upset that they couldn't manage to talk. It was important. The man appeared suddenly and asked why Min Seolha was still there. It turned out she still had some tasks left. Cha Jong-moo told her not to overwork herself, and the girl decided this was her chance. Before Cha Jong-moo could close the door behind him, she quickly ran up. The man stopped when the secretary lady called out to him. He turned around, looking questioningly at Min Seolha, who was closing the door behind her. The girl said something unexpected. She asked him to forget about that request. She also apologized for causing trouble, but the man was already unpleasantly surprised, not understanding anything. Min Seolha explained that she was not in her right mind and didn't understand what she was saying. Instead, the director pressed her against the table surface, asking why she was saying this. The man asked if it was because of his clumsiness. Maybe he had hurt her or something. Min Seolha dismissed those assumptions, and Jung-moo, drawing closer, asked why she was pushing him away then. After all, according to director Cha Jong-moo, she was not indifferent to him. For all 3 years, he had been hiding those feelings, and now this proposal. Why did she want to reject it? He couldn't understand it all. And Min Seolha couldn't believe what she was hearing. Could it be that this incredible man, like her, had been a prisoner of his feelings for so long? Could it be that all this time, while she was suppressing her feelings, he had felt the same? She used to be upset by rumors about his wedding, and now it turned out that the only person this man had feelings for was her, his secretary. All this didn't fit in her head, and she blushed all over. Cha Jong-moo recalled her day off on Friday. He was so worried then that he couldn't find peace. He wanted to visit her, to check if she was okay, but thought it would be too much. Still embarrassed, Ms. Min shyly admitted that she also had feelings for the director. The man smiled first only with his eyes, lowering his gaze to Min Seolha. Then he smiled with his lips and placed his hand on Seola's cheek. Enjoying this touch, the girl put her hand on Jung-moo's hand as well. But the man reminded her that she was probably in a bit of a hurry right now. She blushed even more and was about to leave, but Jung-moo stopped her. He said she wouldn't have to work overtime today because she had other plans. At first, the girl didn't understand what plans he meant, but it turned out those plans had just appeared. For both of them. So now they would both leave work to enjoy each other's company, the general director said. Lying on the hotel bed, the girl felt even more nervous than during their first time. But so what? She decided to stay embarrassed without taking her eyes off that handsome man, who was blushing as he leaned over her. Once again, they kissed and hugged passionately, as if they wanted to devour each other. The general director's touches were also full of emotion this time. It felt very gentle and pleasant for the heroine. Very quickly, certain pieces of their clothing ended up on the floor. Nervously, the girl said she might not meet Mr. Cha's expectations. She herself assumed she might not be that good. However, Cha Jong-moo believed that even if that were the case, it was his fate, and he would accept it. The man was probably even a little surprised at how active and sensitive Min Seolha was during the process. She was like a dream, yet still doubting herself. The man was probably even a little surprised at how active and sensitive Min Seolha was during the process. She was like a dream, yet still doubting herself. The next morning, their hotel room was in complete chaos. The heroine was the first to wake up, feeling sore all over. The man didn't let her sleep all night, until morning. Of course, after so many rounds, the girl wasn't surprised by how she felt. As soon as Min Seolha touched the man, he woke up immediately. Cha Jong-moo took her hand and asked if her actions meant that yesterday hadn't been enough. After all, he wouldn't mind spending their weekends the same way. In fact, the man admitted he would love to see Min Seolha by his side every morning. They lay in bed for a long time afterward, talking about many things and cuddling. And so it happened that on her first working day of the week, the girl realized she hadn't slept at all for the past 2 days. On Saturday, Cha Jung-moo invited her to a fancy restaurant. He even cut Seolha's steak for her. She tried to explain that she could do it herself, but the man was stubborn. He confessed that he enjoyed taking care of Min Seolha. Every time her dream man said things like that, the girl blushed like it was the first time and smiled sweetly. That weekend, they also went for long walks, holding hands. Overall, for the first time in 3 years, they spent 2 days together as a couple. Of course, on Sunday, the girl still had to go home, and Cha Jung-moo even walked her there. He asked her to call him once she got into her apartment. Right now, the girl felt as if those 2 days were her twisted but beautiful dream. Seolha's thoughts were interrupted by her friend calling out from behind. It turned out Yoon Shim had been calling her several times, but her friend had clearly been lost in thought. Yoon Shim asked, "What could have made the always cautious Seolha float in the clouds like that?" The heroine remembered that the last thing she had told her friend about her feelings for that man was about his offer to make love. So now she shared that she and Cha Jung-moo were officially dating. And Shim looked happy after hearing this. She had always been glad for her friend, and now Seolha was in a relationship with the man of her dreams. Linking arms, they went off to discuss all the details of this happy event. Min Seolha was happy to share such news with Yoon Shim and glad that now she had a boyfriend, and a wonderful friend who supported her in everything. Meanwhile, at the airport, another man entered this story. Very serious, elegantly dressed, he had just arrived. A little boy ran right into his path, pointing at his shoes. The child tripped over a suitcase wheel and fell to the floor. The blond man took off his sunglasses, not hiding his displeased look, and lowered his gaze to the boy. He twisted his suitcase, adjusting it to pass more conveniently. Without paying any more attention to anyone, he left the boy and his mother, who rushed to pick up her child, behind without a hint of regret. It turned out he was on the phone, talking about Cha Jung-moo and his perfect life. That same evening, they had to hurry to a meeting with director Kim. On the way, Cha Jung-moo asked Min Seolha to order a suit for him. For some reason, the girl blushed when she thought about the suit. The man joked that his secretary had too many perverted thoughts. Cha Jung-moo complained a little that director Kim was getting on his nerves. And after those words, he quietly reached for his beloved's hand, lightly touching it. Of course, Min Seolha pulled her hand away, as someone might see them. The man said she was too cold-hearted. And besides, who would see them except the cameras? So Min Seolha herself looked around, turning her head to check if anyone was nearby. Then she took Cha Jung-moo's hand, saying they would do this only once, so as not to risk it again. The CEO, looking at his beloved, even blushed a little himself. Min Seolha asked if she should drive, since the CEO had said he hadn't slept well. But he refused, reminding her that she didn't have a driver's license. There were only 3 people at the meeting. Min Seolha was working on her laptop, while Cha Jung-moo and director Kim discussed their business. The CEO reminded them that the land purchase issue was supposed to be resolved within this year, but everything was being delayed. In her thoughts, the main character admitted that the other company was being negligent. She was slightly distracted from her work by director Kim, who was sitting across from her. He wasn't exactly doing anything, but kept glancing at Min Seolha very often. The girl really wanted to slap him across the face. Even Cha Jung-moo noticed that she was feeling a bit uncomfortable. The man distracted Kim by asking if he was even listening. Director Kim explained that he was getting old and lately had trouble concentrating. Trying to stay calm, Cha Jung-moo repeated his question. Director Kim said it was difficult to get approval because the area was currently a tourist site. Later, when the meeting ended, the director promised to hurry things up. Glancing at Miss Min, he suggested going for a drink. Director Kim reached out to shake the girl's hand, supposedly to thank her. Instead, the CEO shoved his car keys into her hand and asked her to find his phone. He said he needed to make a call, but his phone was all the way down in the car. The main character nodded and promised to handle it quickly. As Seola left, Director Kim said it must be nice to work with such a beauty. He even hinted at something indecent in a veiled way, saying her tied-up hair suited her as it didn't get in the way near her mouth. Cha Jung-moo said Director Kim probably couldn't focus during the meeting because of his secretary. In response, Director Kim mockingly asked if Jung-moo was being so sharp-tongued today because of his secretary. He wanted to tease Cha Jung-moo, but Jung-moo cut him off, saying it was pathetic. The man was about to angrily ask what exactly Jungmoo meant by those words. But suddenly, Cha Jungmoo hit the wall and said that's what he meant. Because even from a distance, the cracks were visible. And the fact that his punch left a dent should mean that its foundation was trash. Director Kim was about to add that it was a new wall, but Jungmoo started hitting it again. He said it sounded hollow inside. Director Kim tried to smooth things over, saying there was some misunderstanding between them that needed to be resolved. The CEO smiled and said he was just stating facts, no misunderstanding. Jungmoo even slightly blackmailed Director Kim, not directly, of course, but using a rhetorical question. Meanwhile, Min Solha was coming back without the phone, as it was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, she received a message on her phone. Someone was apologizing for looking at her strangely today. Right after that, the CEO appeared. He explained that he had found the phone. They weren't going for drinks, so he and Min Solha were leaving right away. The CEO didn't explain why the plans had changed, just walked ahead. An angry director, Kim, sat in his office, crumpling a document. The man was irritated that he, Director Kim, had been so shamelessly humiliated. Earlier, General Director Cha said he was expecting the man to apologize to Mrs. Minister. Director Cha Jong-moo ordered that since Kim has Seolha's business card, he should apologize first and then delete her contact number. When Director Kim's assistant entered his office, various papers were thrown at him. Director Kim was furious that his assistant, Ha, was nowhere to be found. The man explained that Director Kim himself had ordered Ha to meet the young master. Right after those words, a blonde man who had recently arrived appeared. He entered arrogantly, didn't greet anyone, spoke sarcastically. Later, he picked up a document from the floor. The blonde man, named Jo Tae-gun, settled into a chair opposite Director Kim. It turned out that this blonde man was Director Kim's nephew. They discussed that Jo Tae-gun should behave in a way that the press wouldn't have to constantly cover for him. Looking at the crumpled document, Jo Tae-gun said that the two of them probably had a common unpleasant enemy. And that enemy, of course, was General Director Cha Jong-moo. In the car, the girl noticed that Jung-moo's mood had changed and carefully asked what had happened. The man didn't want to admit that the conflict was because of Seolha. Jung-moo said he merely pushed Kim to resolve the issue faster, and Mrs. Min asked whether he had requested an apology from Director Kim. The man explained that it was an important project, and Kim probably considered everything and apologized on his own. The girl wanted to ask for something, to set a condition, but she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. She didn't even manage to finish her sentence, but was very surprised by what she saw. Cha Jung-moo's hand was covered in wounds. Min Seolha was frightened, thinking it must have been from punching, and assumed he had beaten Director Kim. After arriving home, she treated Jung-moo's wounds, and he told her the truth. The general director said he had scratched his hand against the corridor walls but hadn't hit anyone. The girl believed him, knowing that Jung-moo wasn't the type to resort to fists. She thought logically that if Kim had been punched, they would either be in the hospital or at the police station. She treated her lover's hand in a way that was slightly painful, to teach him a lesson. However, of course, she didn't want to hurt him, she only said so. The man joked that Seolha probably liked beatings or something like that, if she was saying such things. He made jokes about fetishes until Seolha smacked him on the ear. Getting up, she put everything away and hoped that no scar would remain after healing. As she was leaving, Jung-moo asked how she was feeling. He was simply worried if she was okay after the situation. She replied that she was fine. She kept silent, but thought to herself that this always happened whenever she wanted to slap that arrogant Kim in the face. Cha Jung-moo apologized and explained that he should have watched over her better when he heard the disgusting rumors about Kim. Seolha sat beside him and reassured the man, saying that everything was all right. Cha Jung-moo asked her to speak up right away if she ever felt uncomfortable again. She agreed and said it was time for her to go home. Jung-moo didn't want to let her go, but Seolha explained that she had work tomorrow. Cha Jung-moo reminded her that she probably forgot about their agreement. The very one they made in the elevator, to love each other without restrictions. Of course she hadn't forgotten. But Jung-moo suddenly said that tomorrow would be a hard day, so he would drive her home. The girl herself would have preferred to stay, but tomorrow might be difficult. Or maybe not. She caught herself hesitating. She started mumbling something, but the man's hand pulled her by the waist towards him. Jung-moo seated her on his lap, saying he had almost let her go, but she was seducing him. Although in reality it was the other way around. He was the one seducing her, making her hesitate, but did it really matter? Seolha didn't think so. So they simultaneously leaned in for a kiss. Blushing deeply, Seola suddenly asked if she could undress her lover. Jongmu was just about to give in, thinking he could hold back and let her go, so he was surprised by what he heard. He laughed at his beloved's request, making her even more embarrassed. Jongmu said he would be more than happy since clothes were unnecessary. Blushing furiously, the girl began unbuttoning his shirt, enjoying even this simple process. She wanted to do it because her partner was insanely handsome and muscular. She had some doubts whether it was a good idea, fearing he might think she was a pervert. Suddenly, he pinned her down on the couch, seemingly unable to hold back anymore. He blushed a little himself, admitting it was easier to control his emotions during meetings than with Seola. And once again, they started kissing passionately, pouring all their desire into the kisses. She didn't manage to fully undress the man, but even with his chest half exposed, he looked damn cool. She didn't manage to fully undress the man, but even with his chest half exposed, he looked damn cool. Every single word like that made the girl's cheeks burn. Seolha also found it very attractive that Jungmoo would ask her before doing anything. Like now, for instance, he said they'd only continue if she agreed. A few days after that, Seolha was sitting at her desk, working. She immersed herself in work to avoid thinking about her beloved. Colleagues passing by thought she was very responsible. They admired her but didn't envy her. Even the CEO sometimes looked at Ms. Min, admiring her. In the elevator, she felt a bit shy and kept her hands to herself. Cha Jung-moo said he really wanted to hold her hand, but Seola reminded him they were at work. Besides, their relationship was only a week old. It was too early to display it so openly. The man said that Romeo and Juliet's love lasted only 5 days, yet it was so intense. Min Seolha explained that was because they fell in love at first sight. The CEO also fell in love at first sight. Even Director Kim could confirm that. The girl found it hard to believe, since he used to be rude and even called them ugly once. The CEO explained that he simply didn't know how to handle his feelings back then. But now he was determined to build a serious relationship with Min Seolha. He confessed that he was working on himself to become a better man for her. While talking, Seolha didn't even notice when they started holding hands. He asked her not to leave him hanging, and in return, he would restrain himself from touching her at the office. Seolha said she really wasn't planning on leaving him. Before leaving, the girl reminded him about the meeting in Incheon scheduled for the next day. Suddenly, Cha Jung-moo stopped, not even stepping out of the elevator. Looking at someone with surprised eyes, he asked why that person was here. It was a distinguished older woman dressed in luxurious clothes. Soon they were having tea. The one Seola had chosen turned out to be very much to the lady's taste. The woman asked Jung-moo to at least smile. They hadn't seen each other for 2 years. The man pointed out it had been 2 years, even though she had moved to the USA 3 years ago. Jung-moo explained that his friend's wedding was a year after her move. The lady clapped her hands, remembering her son was indeed at that wedding. Jung-moo believed she simply hadn't noticed him and didn't care, though she always hid behind her old age as an excuse. They also briefly talked about the director's health. Finally, Cha Jung-moo asked why his mother had come back to Korea so suddenly. Putting her teacup on the table, she replied that it was obvious. In a few days, there would be an important day for them because something had happened years ago. The woman didn't want to delve into details again, as it was too painful. But the man still didn't understand. All these years, his mother had been indifferent. So why had she suddenly come back, pretending otherwise? The mother clasped her hands, not even denying her son's words. Looking out the window, she admitted that she had dreamt of that girl. The girl was in tears. It even seemed that mysterious girl wanted to say something, but couldn't. The woman asked if Jung-moo was still angry with her. She understood that Jung-moo and the girl had been close. But she, the mother, had grieved too. Sitting in the chair, Seolha was pondering over the CEO's reaction. She had entered the office just to bring them tea. But Cha Jung-moo told her to return to her work. And he definitely looked sad. She smiled one last time, pretending she hadn't noticed anything, and left. But she was bothered by the gloomy atmosphere there. A phone call pulled her out of her thoughts. She quickly picked up. Only what she heard sounded a little sad. The girl suspected that Mr. Cha had another migraine, even though he had recently taken his medicine. She brought him verbena tea, explaining that it helps with migraines. She also brought the medicine he had asked for over the phone, but reminded him that he had taken it not long ago. Seola apologized to the lady for interrupting their conversation. But the woman turned out to be kind and told her not to worry. Then Seolha handed the medicine to the CEO, asking him to wait before taking it. The girl apologized once more, bowed, and left. She didn't really want to stay there, fearing she might disturb their conversation. She thought she would handle it better, but she felt awkward in front of Jongmu's mother. And the office felt gloomy, clearly indicating she wasn't welcome there. But Minsela only hoped that Jongmu wouldn't take too many pills. For a while, the CEO hesitated whether to take the pills. His mother remarked that he seemed to have frequent headaches. Jongmu explained that it was normal, as he was constantly busy with work. The woman also noted that when Miss Min entered, he seemed to relax a little. She admitted it was unusual for her son to be interested in someone. His mother said she liked Seolha. She seemed like a good person. Turning the pills in his hands, he eventually put them down on the table. He told his mother that Seolha was actually too good for him. Sitting at home, Seolha worried whether Jongmu was okay. He never showed emotions, even in terrible situations, but today he looked gloomy. It saddened her to even think that something might have happened to Jongmu. Eun Shim noticed her friend's sadness. She was staying at Seolha's place because of heating problems and teased her a little. Eun Shim hugged her tightly, saying she was really happy about her relationship with Cha Jongmu. They were both distracted by an urgent message saying there was a snowstorm outside, blocking the roads. Eun Shim immediately got up while Seolha's expression darkened slightly upon hearing this. Eun Shim said she couldn't stand wrapping herself in layers of clothing and preferred warmth. And Seolha, lowering her gaze, agreed. That time of year had come again, the one that had divided her life into before and after a few years ago. Meanwhile, her beloved wasn't feeling any better, and it was a sad time for him too. His mother had previously suggested they visit that special place together. He also remembered someone mentioning that the mysterious girl used to cry in her sleep. Jongmu couldn't understand why she was crying. What did she want to say? It turned out that many years ago, a man had hit that girl with a car and left her there while she was still alive. That man was Min Seolha's father, although they didn't know about it. That's one of the reasons why he always drives himself and never lets anyone else take the wheel. He couldn't stop wondering what she would have told him. What did she want to say while crying? Maybe she was upset because last time only he visited her? Suddenly, he felt the urge to call someone. Someone answered his call, smiling at how things were unfolding. But for the first few seconds, Jongmu couldn't utter a single word. Exhaling, Cha Jongmu said that he really wanted to talk to his father. The man had no time on weekends because he was going to play golf to discuss business. His father suggested he join him to get involved in the business affairs. But Jongmu showed no interest, as he already had plans that couldn't be canceled. Cha Jongmu explained to his father that he wished they would at least call each other more often. But his father told him to review a document instead and hung up. Cha Jongmu sighed, taking the phone away from his ear. Could it be that his father had already forgotten about her? The next day, Seolha was working on her laptop while some of her colleagues discussed the company's anniversary and the day off they would get for it. They also asked Ms. Min about her plans. A tired Seolha simply replied, "To get some sleep." She really needed to sleep. Seeing how sleepy Seolha was, the girls even gave her their vitamin drink. In Seolha's opinion, Jongmu seemed very gloomy whenever she saw him. Today, he barely spoke, didn't tease her, and made no jokes at all. Seolha wasn't sure if she should ask him why he was in a bad mood. Instead, he told her that she looked tired and asked if she was okay. That vitamin drink had helped a little, so she answered that everything was great. Jongmu told her she could go home by herself since he had a lot of work to do. Together with Yoon Shim, who was thrilled about the upcoming day off, Seolha slowly dragged herself home. She was troubled by the fact that she hadn't asked how he was doing or what had happened, and now she was even more worried. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. Eun Shim turned back to her friend, and Seolha immediately apologized. Clutching her bag, she said she needed to go back to Director Cha. Eun Shim crossed her arms and said she knew it, that Seolha wouldn't go home this early. But there was nothing to apologize for, and the girl could calmly go see her beloved. While Cha Jongmu was working, his head started to ache, so he lay down for a bit. Without even noticing, Cha Jongmu fell asleep. He dreamed of the same girl. She had called him a few years ago to tell him that she finally had her Rudolph. Cha Jongmu said that was good, as she had talked about that toy all year long. She looked at the gift with satisfaction, smiling and blushing slightly from the cold. Jongmu couldn't join her then because he had a meeting. But through the phone, he heard a loud crash, got scared, and asked if everything was okay. But Hyun-young never answered him again. Those memories, which had turned into a dream, were his worst nightmare, from which he woke up. It was unbearable to recall that damn day when the girl passed away. The voice of Min Seol-ha calling him finally woke him up completely. At last, she anxiously asked if the director was all right. The man didn't answer right away. He pulled her by the waist and hugged her. The girl hugged him back, and after calming down a little, Jungmoo asked why she was here. Min Seol-ha explained that she wanted to wait for Mr. Cha. Cha Jungmoo noticed a coat draped over his leg, picked it up with his hand, and was surprised. It turned out that Min Seol-ha thought he might be cold and covered him. She said that Jungmoo could open up about what was bothering him, and she would support him in any way she could. The man thought that his mother's visit must have left her feeling uneasy. He explained that he was just a bit sensitive, that's all. And then the old Jungmoo appeared again. He grabbed her hand and said he would never let go until death. Seol-ha blushed, and Jungmoo asked if she had any plans for the evening. Logically, she didn't, since she had come back here just to wait for him. The man draped a coat over Seol-ha and said that work could wait. They had other plans. At home, the first thing he did was change clothes and decided they needed to eat. He picked out his smallest clothes for Seol-ha to change into. Ms. Min felt a little awkward as she entered the kitchen. As she walked in, she said the clothes hung a bit loosely, but they were comfortable enough. The man said that was good and quickly turned away, blushing madly. Seol-ha settled at the table, looking around. She admitted to herself that her beloved's place was much cleaner than hers. Meanwhile, Jungmoo placed 2 servings of shrimp pasta on the table. Min Seol-ha said she even felt a little embarrassed, but she was hungry. Besides, the food made by this man was really good. He smiled and wished her a good meal. Later, the two of them decided it would be a good idea to watch a movie. Min Seol-ha was thrilled, even though it was a horror movie. She loved films and commented a lot. Getting caught up in it, she slightly squeezed Cha Jungmoo's leg. Realizing it, she became embarrassed and immediately withdrew her hand. Jungmoo joked that if she just wanted to touch him, she could have just said so. He even grabbed her hand again and pulled her closer. He placed her hand on his leg and said he liked it when she touched him. Min Seol-ha was completely flustered when Jungmoo, pretending to be upset, asked if she was planning to avoid physical contact altogether. Looking at his beloved's face, he teased her, saying that if she didn't want to, he wouldn't force her. But Min Seol-ha objected, saying she didn't mean it that way, and that he was making things up. Hinting at a more physical continuation of the conversation, the man asked if it was okay if they didn't finish the movie. She said it was fine, and once the TV was turned off, she moved closer and kissed Jungmoo on the cheek. Jungmoo held the girl by the chin, admiring her beauty. Yes, this was truly love. As they kissed, they leaned into each other at the same time, making their hearts race wildly. During the kiss, Seol-ha climbed onto her lover's lap, giving him more opportunities to touch her. The girl trembled at every touch and kiss. No matter how many times they did this, he always drove her crazy. The next morning, tired and thirsty, the girl stood in the kitchen drinking water. Behind her, Cha Jungmoo stood close, hugging her tightly. Min Seol-ha couldn't even move. Her beloved was hugging her so tightly. He explained that she herself had said her back hurt after last night, and it was her fault for wanting to be on top. The girl turned to Jungmoo and covered his mouth with her hand, saying that wasn't how it happened. After she removed her hand, the man smirked boldly and asked if she enjoyed touching his body. Min Seol-ha blushed and said that he was teasing her again. Eventually, the general director let her go and asked if she wanted to take a shower. The girl then asked if she would be showering alone. Cha Jungmoo replied that of course he'd gladly join her, but he wasn't sure he could hold back with his beloved nearby. He admitted he had only just calmed down a little, but if his lover insisted, he couldn't say no. Seol-ha replied that it wasn't necessary. She really couldn't continue any further. But Cha Jungmoo smiled and promised he wouldn't bite her. Instead, they would just cuddle a lot, so there was nothing to worry about. The man asked Seol-ha to wait a little while he ran the bath for them. The girl asked if he was going to do it himself. Jungmoo answered that of course he would. He wouldn't let her lift a finger in his house since she already took care of him at work. That was nice to hear. Seol-ha blushed slightly and went to wait. A little later, they were both sitting in the spacious bathtub, which Seol-ha thought was romantic. Jungmoo held her and thanked her for being such a wonderful person in his life. The girl, of course, was also grateful to now have such a wonderful boyfriend. Jungmoo gently turned Min Seol-ha's flushed face toward him. and the two of them reached out for a soft, tender kiss. A little later, when the man began caressing Seolha, she made a strange sound that made him laugh. She hid her face, mumbling that she was really embarrassed now, and it wasn't funny at all. Besides, she said he had worn her out, and that's why she reacted that way. So it was Jungwoo's fault. But the man believed it was Seolha's fault. She was just too beautiful not to touch. The girl blushed again and said, "There you go again with your jokes and compliments." After some time, they finally got out of the bath and the girl changed into a t-shirt. She was distracted by a ringing sound. It seemed someone was calling. She picked up the phone and it turned out to be Director Park. She was replying to him while rummaging through her bag. A few things fell out of it, including the snowman toy. She was still on the phone and couldn't pick them up, so Cha Jung-moo approached her. The man bent down to pick up the scattered items and noticed the toy from his dream with Hyun Young. He froze, staring at the painfully familiar object. Even Min Solha was surprised at how Cha Jung-moo froze while looking at the toy. Still holding it, he didn't even notice that Solha had finished her phone call. It was Seolha who brought him back to reality by asking if everything was all right. And only then did Jung-moo straighten up. He put the figure into a box and said he hadn't expected that she liked toys from that company. Min Seolha replied that she too was surprised he knew about them since they weren't very popular. She admitted that she buys them every winter around this time of year. She answered Jung-moo's question about whether she was looking for someone specific by saying she was looking for Rudolph the reindeer. The man's expression suddenly changed as he asked why Rudolph in particular. Min Seolha said she simply thought that toy was the cutest. And just like that, the topic was closed. They didn't talk about it again. Sometime later, they were already at work, and a slightly nervous Jung-moo was sitting in his chair. He couldn't get that situation or the snowman out of his head. He truly hadn't expected to find that toy from that company with his beloved. Just as he let out a heavy sigh and leaned back in his chair, someone called. At first, Cha Jung-moo answered formally, thinking it was a work-related call. But no, it was his mother. She wanted to cook something and called to ask what he would like. Jung-moo said it wasn't necessary. He could feed himself. He also asked her not to buy everything on sale since he had given her his credit card. But it was already a habit of hers, and non-sale groceries were expensive. Jung-moo said he'd visit on the weekend and was about to hang up. But his mother stopped him and said she would fry anchovies before he arrived. That was Hyun Young's favorite dish, but Jung-moo didn't say anything. He just asked her not to cook anything. Then he finally hung up and exhaled heavily. It was a hard time for him. Meanwhile, Cho Tae-gun went shopping. It seemed like he had decided to buy out every possible store as his assistant's hands were full of bags. Everyone around noticed this incredibly handsome man, but he paid no attention to anyone. Like a model, he just walked into yet another store. But near the counter, he noticed a very familiar figure. It turned out Min Solha was in that store too, picking out a tie. The sales assistant was showing her 2 ties that were all the rage this season. Min Solha imagined her boyfriend in a black tie with gray stripes, and also imagined him in a red patterned tie. In her mind, both accessories suited Jung-moo perfectly. From her own imagination, Min Solha turned as red as a tomato. While examining the ties, she wondered whether this would be a good birthday gift at all. She remembered how Cha Jung-moo had once asked her to return all the gifts. He explained it by saying that if he accepted even one, they'd never leave him alone afterward. That's why she never dared to give him what she had intended back then. She felt sad that she had never given him anything because of his decision not to accept gifts from coworkers. But now they weren't just coworkers. She was his girlfriend, so she had every right to prepare a gift. Cho Tae-gun had been watching all of this for a while, and the sales assistant asked if he needed anything. Walking up, he asked if the lady was picking a gift for her boyfriend. At that moment, the girl's phone rang. It was Yoon Shim. Looking at the phone, she thought her friend had probably finished work. She ignored the blonde man and told the consultant that she would definitely come back later. The blonde man raised an eyebrow and smiled slightly. That was unexpected. The girls met at an outdoor table and decided to have coffee together. It was clear that today had not been an easy day for Yoon Shim. Nevertheless, she had seen a very handsome guy, and just remembering him made her blush. It turned out that it was Jo Tae-gun. Yoon Shim explained which company he was from, and the main heroine turned pale. It turned out that the rumors about Cha Jung-moo's wedding referred to a girl from the same company as Jo Tae-gun. Yoon Shim, seeing her friend's face, explained that it wasn't about the rumored wedding. She said that Jo Taegun had come to buy a limited edition watch. And while buying the watch, he enchanted the entire store, including Yoon Shim. Her friend compared Jo Taegun's looks to Cha Jong-moo's, saying he was even better looking. But Min Seol-ha disagreed and said Cha Jong-moo was the most handsome man in the world. A male voice asked if Seol-ha really thought so. The girl crossed her arms and said of course she did. Then she realized that it was Cha Jong-moo himself, and he had totally caught her. Eun Shim and Cha Jong-moo also formally greeted each other. The man said he came to pick up his beloved because when she's with Ms. Lee, no one can get through to her. Seol-ha apologized and started looking for her phone. Meanwhile, Eun Shim and her coffee had already vanished. Neither Young-moo nor Seol-ha noticed it. The man said he owed Ms. Lee a thank you for giving them a little time for a walk. But during the walk, the girl wouldn't let him hold her hand, let alone kiss her. She even walked a few steps ahead to make sure Young-moo didn't try anything. Meanwhile, the man asked Ms. Min not to schedule anything for him over the weekend due to personal matters. He explained to the girl, as his beloved, that he had a meeting with his mother. Jong-moo said they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and it would feel wrong not to spend time with her at all. Now Seol-ha understood why the man had seemed uncomfortable before. They talked for a bit more, casually and without any formalities. Meanwhile, someone who was watching them took a photo of Jong-moo and Seol-ha. It was a man. He smiled maliciously, clearly plotting something. Of course, there were always people who loved to poke their noses into other people's business. A little later, that photo was sent to Jo Taegun's phone. He recognized both Cha Jong-moo and the same Ms. Min he had seen earlier at the store. His smile became disturbingly wicked when he realized he knew the woman who was likely in a relationship with Cha Jong-moo. The next day, Cha Jong-moo was sitting in his office, filling out some documents. When he wanted to sign the document, his pen ran out of ink. Putting the pen aside, the man leaned back, adjusted his hair, and sighed heavily. Nearby, there was a calendar, and Jong-moo's gaze accidentally landed on it. It turned out that the weekend was very close. That thought weighed heavily on him, and his chest felt tight. Min Seol-ha was also working at her desk, but on a computer rather than paperwork. She was distracted by Cha Jong-moo, who explained that his pen had just run out of ink. He said he really liked these pens, but didn't want to burden Ms. Min. He just asked where she got them, and he'd buy them himself. But according to Min Seol-ha, no one needed to go anywhere. She had already anticipated it long ago. Apparently, she had noticed that he liked using that pen, so she bought a few and brought them to Jong-moo. He sincerely thanked Ms. Min, saying he was happy to see his beloved, despite how busy she was. But Seol-ha, blushing, reminded him not to look at her like that or give compliments while they were at work. But Cha Jong-moo said that if it were up to him, he'd take his beloved and fly home with her right now to spend time together. Min Seol-ha broke out of his embrace, saying she had something very urgent to do and had to run. And she did. Cha Jong-moo was pleased that Seol-ha blushed so deeply. He himself was a little shy too, and his cheeks flushed when spending time with his beloved. Walking out the door, the main heroine whispered to herself that they needed to be more careful at work. Her attention was drawn by a few colleagues who were once again loudly discussing something. The brunette said she had heard that their CEO would be having dinner this week with his fiancée and their parents. Upon hearing this, Min Seol-ha turned pale. Those were terrifying words for her. Moreover, Cha Jong-moo had previously told her that it was just a rumor, that he didn't have any fiancé or anything like that. Seol-ha thought that she should have asked him directly about it and had a serious talk instead of tormenting herself now. But she decided that she should trust the man she loved. He did have personal plans for the weekend, and she also had her own things to do. The next morning, they had breakfast together with Yoon Shim. Her friend said she had gotten up early to meet Seol-ha, but the girl had already done everything by herself. Seol-ha said she didn't want to bother her friend. But she was very grateful to Yoon Shim for always caring about her. Sitting at the table, she once again remembered the day of her father's trial. That day, the prosecutor showed her father a toy that the victim was carrying home. He said the girl had searched for it for a long time, but now Rudolph was broken due to the accident. Seol-ha's father looked at the toy but couldn't recognize it at all. He said he remembered nothing at all. This made Min Seol-ha shudder in her seat. She started crying then, unable to understand how such a thing could have happened, refusing to believe her father could have done that. Since then, every year she visited the girl her father had hit with the car. She did this a year before the anniversary of the accident to avoid running into the girl's relatives. It was hard to say if she was doing the right thing by going there. but she simply couldn't abandon that girl. She couldn't get the image of the broken Rudolph toy out of her mind. So each year she brought flowers and the same toy she received in a gift. It would be wrong to forget the person who died because of her father. Eun Shim changed the topic and asked whether Min Seolha had talked to Jong-moo about the wedding rumors. Seolha said no. Then Eun Shim shared that she didn't think the CEO was seeing anyone. And actually, Seolha was the first one to meet his parents. His mother, to be exact. And Shim said that in any case, it would be better for the CEO not to hurt her friend. Or else. Then Yoon Shim, looking at her phone, suggested they go to an important event at a luxurious hotel. She explained that the entrance was free in honor of the 50th anniversary. The next day, they actually managed to attend the event. Moreover, CEO Jong-moo was also present at the hotel. There were so many people around that he thought running a hotel business might be a great idea. But his peace of mind was suddenly disturbed by a girl he recognized. They hadn't seen each other since they graduated from college. That had been a long time ago. Blushing, the girl said she missed Young-moo very much and asked how he was doing. The CEO didn't really want to talk to her, but it wouldn't be polite to just turn away. However, from his perspective, the girl was being far too touchy. This rather unpleasant scene was witnessed by Min Seolha, who was passing by with Yoon Shim. It was the same girl from the article. She was also from the same company as Jo Tae-gun. This made the girl think that the rumors were probably true. Turning to her friend, Min Seolha said she needed to stop by the restroom before they continued. She decided to talk about it later because right now she was here to have fun with Yoon Shim. Her friend, rummaging through her bag, was waiting outside the restroom. Meanwhile, Jo Tae-gun was looking for Jo Kang-hee, his sister who had dragged him here and then disappeared. Suddenly, a small lip balm rolled to his foot. It had fallen out of Yoon Shim's bag. The man looked at the item with such irritation as if it were some kind of insult rather than an accident. When he kicked the lip balm away, an annoyed voice rang out behind him. It was Yoon Shim. She scolded him, saying he could have just picked it up instead of kicking it like a brute. Jo Tae-gun turned and said it was her fault for dropping it in the first place. When their eyes met, they recognized each other. Only Yoon Shim couldn't believe a guy with such looks could behave so rudely. Jo Tae-gun probably regretted it too when he saw the familiar and incredibly beautiful face before him. Smiling, he said that if he had upset her, he was willing to apologize. And he handed her his business card, saying she could call him if she wanted that apology. And that's where we'll leave it for now. The story is far from over. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.